the coin went to like 100 million market cap in like 30 minutes.
Fuck. That takes some balls to do, right? Like
Balls or I'm crazy.
I would say that the majority of people don't realize what's happening. They see Bitcoin going off and they're like, oh, I should invest in Bitcoin. Fundamentally, I get and I understand, but I don't think it's that visible from the outside unless you're in it. Why is that? Bro, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to jump straight into this, okay? So I want to know where did this brand come from? Because it's not small, your brand, from a follower point of view and whatnot. And I can't make sense of the brand you built. Like I can't make sense of the numbers that you've got and anything. And I want to sort of unpack this with you. How did you build this brand? Where did it come from? But more importantly, where did it all start? Yeah. Good questions.
Yeah, I asked them a bit. Asked about exactly what I do. It's not necessarily that clear from looking at my content and everything, but so 4 years I've been full time in Web3 now.
Cool.
Before doing Web3, I was in construction management, doing commercial construction, leading a crew, kind of project management. Yeah. And then the lockdowns happened, so I was stuck inside, couldn't do any obviously any building work. So I was scratching my head, got a lot of time on my hands. Not a lot to do in the confined space, but I had my laptop and my phone. So at the time, around 2021 was the start of the kind of NFT bull cycle. So the bull market was really kicking in, and Bored Apes were over 100k USD and starting to pump. Obviously they went up to about 500k, so those went crazy. But at that time I was like, hey, this is quite interesting, what's going on here? So I jumped in. I didn't know what Discord was. It's a gaming application, where everyone converses in there and have communities. So I downloaded that, jumped in. I bought an NFT, and then as soon as I bought it, it started just dumping hard. Like just went to like zero, and I just go in there. I'm like, where's my money going? And then started chatting to the guys, and then they kind of started explaining about how exactly the community side works, what the digital ownership, your unique asset, blah blah blah. So I kind of just got into the trenches at the base level, and I was like, this is pretty cool. Was doing that, and for a few weeks, learning the ins and outs, getting to know people, and then by the time I went back to work, I was actually making more money doing Web3 and NFTs than I was at building.
Crazy.
And at that point, that was kind of like had to make the decision, and it was, hey, let's have a go at this. Why not? Always wanted to be in tech. And own my business in tech. So that's how it kind of originated.
So just for everyone listening, Web3, like I have a pretty good understanding, but like most people, you saying Web3 is probably straight over their head. They're like, what do you even mean, right? They probably don't know what Web2 is or even Web1 and what the differentiation is. So when you say Web3, what do you mean?
Yeah. So Web3 is essentially digital ownership, sovereignty over your own assets, and it all stemmed from there. And then you have things like smart contracts, where you can that's tying into real world assets like houses and all that kind of thing that has been introduced in Web3. It's a decentralized ledger on the internet where all of your crypto is displayed, and it can't be manipulated by a government or anything like that. So that's the kind of base.
So for someone like random off the street, right, has no clue about this space, what's the most practical place that they're going to interact with Web3? Maybe now or into the future?
Practical place on the street?
Like just on the street, I just mean like the everyday human. Where are they going to most likely interact with Web3?
They most likely interact by probably investing in Bitcoin, getting themselves a wallet. Obviously there's ETFs now, there's a lot of institutional money getting into crypto. So, Bitcoin's like your gold, your gold. And then Ethereum's another big one that's struggling at the moment. But then you've got Solana, you've got XRP, and a bunch of other kind of top chains that are doing really well. But people would invest in Bitcoin, I'd say.
And the reason Bitcoin is part of that Web3 you're saying is because of this like centralized ledger, the blockchain that has been built on the infrastructure, which has records of everything that ever happens on it, so no one can sort of falsify the data, right? And that's kind of the point of it, that it's like everyone is like a lot of transparency.
There's also a limited supply, so obviously money can be printed. There's inflation, and there's a limited supply of Bitcoin, and there won't be any more produced. And so once that kind of supply shock really kicks in, you're going to see just parabolic growth to the upside.
Okay, cool. So hopefully everyone listening, because I know it's a topic that a lot of people have no clue about, right? Like you said, not many people know what you do, because it is still early.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the theme of this. Like, how hard has it been early? Because like, you would know this more than I do, but like, it went through a few years of just like a bunch of sharks or hustlers or scammers and all this world, and it hasn't really come out of it too far from the general public. The general public still don't know a lot about this world. So like, from your point of view, like, what was it like being that early in it, where everyone was like, bro, what are you doing? How are you making this money? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, just like you say, there's not much regulation, and it's all, a lot of the people that interact with crypto are anonymous, so they have kind of aliases, or like their accounts have got animal pictures on them and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it was really interesting. At first, there's a lot of people trying to take advantage of the system, and kind of like you said, kind of bad actors and things like that. So navigating around that while simultaneously keeping up with the learning curve. It was kind of steep learning curve, and Web3 can change overnight. So one day, it can be kind of completely different industry to the next. And so it was really building the train tracks while the train's going. Yeah. And for the first 2 years, I worked about 15 to 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah. Yeah. And I was lucky enough that everything's still moving along, and we got some traction. But it was definitely had some very stressful times. Yeah. Another really big stressful one was doing a transaction. If you miss off one digit or one letter, it's going to send all your money to the wrong address. And I was doing some big transfers in the middle of the night, just sweating. Yeah, that's crazy, eh? There's no way to get that money back either, right? Because it's gone. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you send it to an exchange slightly wrong, sometimes they can get it back, sometimes they can't. But if you go for a decentralized wallet and you miss a digit off, then it can go just to a random person, and you can't contact them or get it back, or just goes to the ether. Yeah. Tell me, you talked about like working in Web3, right? For you, what did that look like at the beginning? What was working in Web3 actually mean? Like, I understand the idea of like trading, right? And it's different but similar conceptually to stock market trading, right? It's conceptually the same, obviously a different process and different things and markets. But outside of that, like, is that when you say working, you're working in that space, or what else were you doing as a job? Yeah, so I didn't start off in trading. I started off within community management inside of projects. Interesting, Yeah, what I specifically do is assist in go-to-market, advisory, kind of community growth, social media within projects, whether that be an NFT, whether that be a token, whether that be a game. Yeah. So I started off in NFTs, building communities, doing the social media management, and also a lot of business development. So collaborating with other artists and other brands to kind of cross-pollinate audiences. So just kind of networking. A lot of it's networking, reaching out to people all around the world, jumping on calls, being like, hey, I've got this cool project. You've got a cool project. How can we make something work? And then kind of refining the details of that, locking it in, and then executing as well. Pushing up the posts, scheduling the posts, getting assets, whether they still images or videos, animations, and things like that. Yeah. And then I was creating all of my own graphics and animations at the start too. So I was just a one-man band, just doing the. Kind of like as a freelancer, or were you employed by people? Yeah, so I'm. Was it like a job, or was it like a contract? Yeah, so I'm kind of subcontracted in. Cool. I have my own business, my own company, NFT Plug, and then we have, I've got my right-hand man, Diggy, who's from the Netherlands. So it was great. Pretty much opposite time. Yeah. So when I'm going to sleep, he's waking up. When he's going to sleep, I'm waking up. So we had a good coverage on our international clients. Cool. But, and then we had a team of moderators. We had people that we outsource, whether it's in development to help build things, or create particular assets and things like that. So have like a skeleton crew, and then can pull in more subbies if you need it. Okay, interesting. And so as you went through that process, so you're actually like in the trenches, doing the work with people. That's cool. I didn't actually understand that or know that. Yeah. I know that NFT Plug is now, but you've been doing that like kind of from day dot. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So that's interesting. Okay, that's cool. That's something new I learned. I can see that NFT Plug's kind of there now. I saw that from your things, but that's really interesting way in. And I find it, the reason I think it's so interesting, as I talk to a lot of young kids who are like, I want to get into, I don't know what I want to do for a living. And it's kind of like, what do you enjoy doing? And I remember talking to one of my nephews, and he's like, I don't know. I was like, what do you enjoy doing? He's like, I enjoy gaming.
And he was like, but like, I'm not a coder. I'm never going to make games or anything like that. And my sort of viewpoint was like, bro, do you know how many jobs there are in gaming?
Yeah.
Like, do you know how many jobs? Like, there's so many. There's social media and fucking gaming. There's, project management. There's all sorts of stuff. And this is what you're saying to me now. I don't think the majority of people would have realized that, oh yeah, of course you could do other things in Web3 than just trading NFTs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's, it was a really popular industry, a lot of inflow of capital, and I kind of positioned myself in there. I essentially created my own role in my own agency and just modeled it how I wanted to. I was like, hey, this guy wants me to do this. I can create a team to do that, and this is how we're going to.
How did you get that foot in the door in the first place? Like, how did you get this community growing? Where did it start?
I just literally just in my bedroom during the lockdown. I just kind of jumped in and I met people throughout the world.
Like when you say jumped in, you jumped in on Discord servers?
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, Discord servers over socials. So my socials, weren't very active back then. I'd stopped posting for a while. And not really big accounts. I wasn't even using my X account at the moment. I just jumped in and literally just kind of networked internationally with random people I'd never met before that had animal pictures. And and then they kind of saw the vision that I saw, because I saw so much opportunity. I was like, hey, wow, we can make like a really cool business, and it can also be very lucrative for everyone involved, and there's so much attention. So
and how were you getting paid at the beginning? You were just like invoicing for services, or were you getting paid with like, with crypto and NFTs? Like, how was it happening?
Well, I got like ripped off a few times and scammed, obviously, as you do when you first start a business.
It was the Cowboys at the start, right?
I think my first month full time with a client, they just didn't pay me at all.
Oh, fuck.
And then obviously having international clients though, they can just easily pay with crypto, and then it's easy to distribute it back through the team as well.
Interesting.
So you can get paid with crypto, or some clients prefer to, they're old school, they want a bank transfer kind of thing.
Okay, so this is fascinating because it's like I would say that the majority of people in the world don't realize what's happening. Right? They're pretty blind to it all, and they just see Bitcoin going off, and they're like, oh, we should invest in Bitcoin, and that's where they think the money is just being played only in that space. But what you've essentially just said is like, of course, there's a whole industry that supports all of this trading and all of these other NFT projects and stuff like that, which obviously, like, fundamentally I get and I understand, but I don't think it's that visible from the outside unless you're in it. Why is that?
I believe it's quite complicated.
Yeah.
Even, for example, getting a decentralized wallet, investing in Bitcoin can be quite complicated to some people. So the area that I'm playing in is like a few layers deeper than that.
Yeah.
And it's very stressful, and it's like it's a lifestyle, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
But so unless you jump into it, really, you wouldn't understand. Or if I tried to explain it to someone on the street, they would not know what I'm talking about anyway. So but I guess once you jump in and kind of get yourself some digital assets, get yourself a digital wallet, and start partaking in these events, like there's a thing called Twitter Spaces, where essentially people jump in, have a group of people all up on the stage and kind of discuss crypto news and projects and all that kind of stuff, and those run all around 24/7 essentially. So I was getting in those spaces, jumping up on the stage, just being like, hey, how's it going, just meeting people and stuff, and one of the only Kiwis that would be doing that. So but you build a bit of a brand for yourself, build a name, build some contacts, and then just go for it and see what you can come up with. But highs and lows for sure.
So that's quite interesting. So the way you built because you've got some substantial followings across your social media profiles. Are you saying that like majority of that growth came from the communities that you're participating in, as opposed to because take your Instagram for instance, you've almost got more followers than you do views on the videos you've posted. So like, where do they come from? Is that deleted posts, or is that from people coming from other places to come in? Like, how does that happen?
I collaborated with a lot of big brands when the NFT movement started happening and pushing projects and stuff like that. And obviously I've removed some posts and stuff like that to clean it up as well.
Makes sense.
But I was never really in it to try and build a big following or to build views or anything like that. And it kind of just happened that way. But through Instagram was great. I mean, I collaborated with some individuals that I never even thought I'd speak to in my life, some massive names from the States. And a lot of awesome Kiwis and stuff like that as well. So it was good, right time, right place, and just had a bit of serendipity with the collaborations, and posts and stuff like that.
Got it.
Fortify or Samuel Runnacles was a big one as well. So
okay.
I worked with him and did some collaboration posts and stuff like that, and he's got an awesome following. So.
Yeah. So you sort of like over time you did lots of things, but then obviously as you cleaned up some of your profile, maybe that's not shown anymore. But you built that from just working for these people in different spaces.
Well, I actually was doing more like, if you'd seen my stories, I'd maybe do like 10, 12 stories a day for like
there we go.
A year or two, and then I came up with my own strategy. So I was collaborating with a lot of other creators and giving them opportunities to get into projects, and then so that was kind of like a viral web.
Got it.
And then had most of the, a lot of big people from New Zealand posting about it, and then
got it. So like a real network effect, as opposed to going look at my content. Instead, you're going, hey, I'm up to some cool shit. If you want to be part of it, follow along for the journey, as opposed to going, look at this viral TikTok dance that I've done.
Exactly. Yeah. And I positioned myself a bit differently too. I wasn't like completely faceless, but I was relatively faceless and not really like look at me. And I was more like education and stuff like that as well. So I was helping educate a lot of people for free, like hundreds of hours, just helping teach people, and that helped grow a community as well, giving them value and insights.
That's fascinating, eh? It's a fascinating way to do it, because I'm a big believer in community building being a really good way to build any audience, no matter what. But like hearing the way you've done it is like you caught a wave real early. You were super passionate about it. There's a lot of things that aligned, right? Like COVID happening, being locked down into that space, that probably, like, without that, you might have just been out building the whole time, not had the time to look at stuff. But it's like capitalizing on opportunity when it's put in front of you. It's kind of, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like you've just like gone, you've seen a thing and done it, right? Tell me though, that takes some balls to do, right? Like, that's not saying that everyone would have just jumped
balls
in.
Or I'm crazy.
Well, I don't know. People say the same thing about me sometimes about it. But like from your perspective, why then? What gave you the confidence, or were you just like, fuck it, give it a crack?
Well, to me at the time, it was like almost like a no-brainer. But looking back at it, I'm like, damn man, you crazy, bro. Like that was insane. But no, I felt like it was it was perfect timing, and I was at the point in my building career, and I was working in events and things before that. I'd kind of matured in that, and I was like, it's time for a new challenge, some time on my hands, and so I can't say it was a completely logical decision. And a lot of my family and friends were like, you're insane. And then a few months later, they started asking me how I did it.
That's always the
first
way.
It was crazy. First you're crazy, and how did you do it?
That's it. It's the same for me. It's the same for me. My brother's like, bro, you're an idiot, bro. Why'd you go with your career to come and do this business that you got? And now they're like, oh, bro, can you help me with this thing? It's interesting that you say that. Like, the reason I ask, like, what people call me crazy for the bets I've taken and stuff, but I look at what you've done and what other people in your space done, and so I'd been following the whole thing for a long time. Like I was looking at Bitcoin back in like 2014, 2013, like really, bro, I didn't. But my dad was like, why aren't you in this? Like he's like put $1,000 and you lose $1,000. And at the time it was like in the cents or whatever it was, right? And I didn't, but I'd been following along, and I kept on following, and I was like, oh man, if I had done it there, and you start getting into this mindset. But I've never like pulled trigger on any of it, because like I'm not that sort of investor. Like I'm not that sort of person I've never been someone who's trying to make a large. I'm not trying to win on the stock market. It's not what I've done. I'm definitely an entrepreneur who knows he can build something himself in his own business. And my thoughts are that this is the early day Bitcoin. This business is this equivalent of me for being an early. One day I'll grow it to a big thing. But I saw all this stuff happening. I saw the NFT movement happening, and I was right there with it. I'd been following Gary Vee for a few years at that point, so he was obviously a big proponent of the world that it was going through, and then I'd gone through the filters of all the people. But like I never could pull trigger on it. And my wife was always like, I need you to stop talking about it because of all the money we've lost because you haven't pulled trigger. And then I got to a point where I was just like, I kind of felt, fuck, this isn't for me. And actually, I even was at a point, like when he first started, like he was right, like talking about it all. And it was a normal thing for actually people of his age, and other people were like, this is where we're going to be. We're going to buy some NFTs. I was like, fuck, you guys are stupid. Like, why are you doing it? Blah, blah, blah. But actually, I think that when I reflect back to it now, years later, it's been like 3 years since I first met Connor, is that like, I was at the point of, I had missed the boat so many times that I was almost like, I'm the fuckwit. And I was kind of responding that way because I should have done it early on. And that's why I kind of asked, like, how how do you, like, what was going through your head at those moments to do
Probably
those
not
decisions?
a lot. I've always loved like digital media and design, loved tech. I understood social media, so I understood how algorithms work, and I actually created an app beforehand. So I did do a little bit of tech. So I went to university in Florida for 2 years.
Oh, wow. Like
a travel abroad, joined a fraternity there.
Cool.
Into some business competitions. So into like a Louis Vuitton business competition through one of the classes I was in, and got runner-up for that.
Oh, amazing.
And then I built an app, it was a social media fitness app, where it had like a bracket sorting algorithm. It was kind of like Tinder, but for exercise.
Okay.
And just like ranking, not like trying to date them, but just like, you know, who's got like better physique or whatever. And then managed to win Young Entrepreneur of the Year in Sarasota for that.
Oh, amazing.
So learning more about algorithms and how that whole back end worked. Then when I got back into tech at a later date, I was like, I understand exactly how these algorithms work. And I was like, I can beat those algorithms. And then just a one-man social media team across Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, videos over 1 million views at least on all of those platforms. Or above, you know. I think one of TikTok's got up to 10 million views. And for 30 days at one point, I was like, I'm going to go on YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, and just make content and see what happens, see how many views I can get, see if I can, you know, crack it. And probably one of my coolest ones, I made a video about The Rock, and he liked it. It got like 1 million views. And it was on my backup account. So on my backup Instagram, I got 1 million views on it. And that's only a small following count. So followers don't matter too much.
Nah, they don't matter at all. That tells me so much more. Actually, that's a really good point to bring up. And I think for people listening, the time learning business, learning tech, doing the app and all that sort of stuff, that is it. Like, that's actually the answer of why you had the balls to do it, because
that
like
culminated, that all came together.
Yeah, it all came together, right? Like, it's when preparation meets opportunity kind of thing, right? That's that definition of luck, that you were just ready. You had the exposure to this world, to not necessarily NFT or crypto or whatever, but Web3, but you understood tech well enough to go. You've obviously got some ideas around entrepreneurship. You're obviously an entrepreneur. And you obviously have some ideas around tech. And when you put those things together, entrepreneurs can see the future really well. And I think that's a skill that entrepreneurs have. That they go, bro, I've got all this knowledge, and then I seen this thing. I can extrapolate to this, to that.
Exactly.
And I don't think a lot of people can do that. And that's like when I did this business, when people think me crazy. My brother he'd walk into our other office or this office, fuck, you got some big nuts. Like, how the fuck do you do this, you know? And it's actually because he can't see the thing I can see, the future. Like, nah, bro, it does this. And even when you tell them,
they're like, right.
They're like, sure, bro, you're full of shit. Like, I can't see. There's no proof to me. So it actually gives me a lot of, like, because I didn't know that past of yours, which gives me so much more, like, it gives me a lot more confidence with your story of why you got to where you are, because it wasn't luck. It wasn't just like you weren't being an idiot. You weren't being an idiot.
No, I wasn't just kind of random, no experience that just kind of like threw shit at the wall. Nah, you actually knew what you're doing. You were early though, and that's the thing. That's why people thought you were crazy. Okay. Fascinating. Fast forward to today. Now where you're at. Like, where is this world? How is it evolving? It's not in the media the same way it used to be. You know, there was it was every other story coming out of everything for a while. Like, has much changed for you? I know that, like, we're talking about off camera here, that Trump just threw the whole world into chaos, and that's that sort of world's playing up. But as like a business, rather than like stock markets or crypto markets or whatever, just as like a business, like, how has the world changed? It's obviously, you talked about institutional money coming into it. That's a big thing that's happening, right? But like, how has that world changed for you now that it's a bit more established? It's still maybe not as prominent, but it's a lot more established. Has things much changed for you, or is it just more of the same, doing bigger things? Yeah, so that's a great question. After the NFT boom and the market started to quiet down a little bit, I pivoted more into gaming. So my first year was all NFTs, and then for the past 3 years, I've been working with some gaming projects, and I was lucky enough, the original creators of Grand Theft Auto picked me up to be the director of marketing for a game, which we raised about $13 million US.
Cool.
So that's Tony Harmon and Dave Jones.
Yeah, okay.
And Tony also made like Donkey Kong Country and a bunch of other.
Oh, really?
He worked at Nintendo for a long time, so. Yeah, pivoted into gaming, worked with those guys for a while. Also...
Wait. Don't just gloss over that, bro. Don't gloss over this shit. Okay, like, that's way too big of a thing to just drop. what does that mean? You pivot into gaming, like you're doing Web3 stuff in gaming? Is that what you're trying to say, or it's just a whole nother thing you're doing?
So it's an easy way to break up crypto. Well, I do anyway. The project wise is NFTs, gaming, or tokens.
Okay.
So those are kind of the three different types of projects that I'd work with. And after the initial NFT boom, the demand kind of started to decrease.
Yeah.
Not like crazy, astronomical sales going on every day. Like demand slowed a little bit, but then it was more of NFTs getting implemented into games. So how can we use that as a use case? Because that was like the proof of concept. You can do things with NFTs. It's like now from a utility perspective, where can they actually, past after the bubble, how can they continue to kind of be integrated? And the idea was to have sovereignty over your game assets. So for example, if you're playing Call of Duty or Counter-Strike and you spend a bunch of money for a cool skin, but if the game server's ever turned off, all your assets are gone. So it was like, how can we introduce these assets into games that are held in your personal wallet, so you have ownership over those assets, and then you can level them up and stuff like that, and you hold it in your pocket rather than someone else having the keys. So that was how I jumped into gaming. But AAA gaming, so just like you'd see on PlayStation or Xbox and that sort of thing. PC game, we had a couple games for that, and I was helping advise, do the community stuff and social content and things like that.
Yeah, so still very much in the same social community build space, but
very just similar,
but just in the gaming lens. That's interesting. Actually, I want to ask a couple questions on that. Like with gaming, and let's call it Call of Duty, and you bought a weapon or a skin or something, right? How is that? I understand the point that they've got an asset, but like if that game does disappear, they've still got the asset, but what can they do with that asset outside of just owning it? Like, is there technology there now that can pass to other games, or it's just now a collector's item?
Well, for Call of Duty, for example, that wouldn't be Web3. So once they turn the lights off, your stuff's gone. Yeah. But for a Web3 game, for example, the likes of the one that I was working on, a lot of games are aiming to have interoperability across games. So that was available with the game that I have. And you can, when you level up your character and get traits and special accomplishments, those are saved into the metadata of the NFT. So on the blockchain, we're able to store all that information, and then you are also able to use that asset across different games. Yeah. But not all games can do that.
And so like the ultimate goal then is to have like some like unified language that all games start to build around, so that these assets can be shared amongst all of them. Is that kind of the idea? Kind of like a universal language?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the goal and what we're working on at the universe is a universe of our own games, which it is interoperability, has the interoperability. Yeah. But at the moment, like across games, simple games, some of them have that, but with the AAA assets, a bit more difficult. So you'd have to have kind of a bit of an agreement, or like set up with other brands to make it actually work, within their platform.
Yeah. It's kind of like the early days of like just everything in the world, like the ISO standards and stuff. That as a world we have to agree on certain standardization. I mean, like USB is a good example, right?
Exactly.
If we all agree on it, then we can all use the same stuff. So our technology actually is enhanced because of all the other players.
It'll be compatible.
It's not actually detracting from my business, because actually now I get all these other people helping to develop the products for me. Cool. Okay, that makes sense to me. Okay, carry on. So that's where we're at. So gaming, tokens, NFTs. What else is going on? Where else is it going?
At the moment, it's more well established. Obviously, we are in the middle of the bull cycle at the moment. It looks a bit like a bear market, but for at least another 6 months plus, we'll be in bull market territory, which every 4 years there's a bull market. Traditionally, if you and historically, if you look across the charts, that's kind of how the market cycle rolls out. And the halving this year as well, and then obviously Trump getting into president, he's pro crypto, so there was a lot of anticipation, which pumped Bitcoin over 100K, and now it's retracing a bit. I think we're around 70 something K today. So the market has changed, though. Obviously, not as much emphasis on NFTs. There's been massive market activity within meme coins at the moment. So that's like over the past 6 months plus, that's been one of the kind of main attention drivers in crypto. And there's been a new platform that came out, Pump.fun, which is anyone can launch their own token. within, maybe 20 seconds.
Yeah.
All we need to write is the name, the ticker, a picture, and the links.
Yeah.
And there's people that full-time make a living just from trading meme coins.
Yeah.
And some of my friends and people I know, they can make like 250K US plus a week. Like one of my friends made 250K the other week.
Yeah.
Can make $1 million in a week.
It's crazy, eh?
Yeah, some of the top traders are pulling in crazy kind of amounts of money.
Yeah. Just to put that in perspective for people listening, to make $1 million, I'm assuming that's like, I sold, I got $1 million out, right? What am I putting in to do that? Like, what are these risks that they're taking? Because those are cool numbers, but like, what is it? Just so people understand, like, that's probably not an easy thing to do. These guys know their shit. They obviously know what they're doing. But like, what am I putting in to make $1 million out? Just relative, like.
Yeah. So if you get real lucky, there's people quite frequently that put in a few $100s and can pull out $1 million.
Yeah.
But obviously, the more you put in, the more the higher your end result's going to be. But essentially, these coins, the easiest way to explain it, these coins started usually around a $5,000 market cap.
Yep.
And then if that's the valuation of the coin, essentially, like your and if it would go into the millions, you'd get that $1 million figure, divide it by 5K because that's where you entered. And then that's a multiple of whatever your initial investment was.
Yeah.
So you can get plays that do like 1,000x, or more than 1,000x.
Crazy.
You put in a few $100 early into some of these big coins.
Yeah. And so is that what people are doing? They're just like, because it's actually quite a low risk then, but they can just do it over 100 of them. One pops off, or is it a little bit more complicated and sophisticated?
It sounds like a low risk, but then you also have to enter a lot of different coins to get the opportunities. So it could be a few $100 entry, but then you could put a few $100 into a few of them, and it just tanks to zero. So then your kind of cost basis price would be like more into the thousands or something like that. But you can start with a really low portfolio and grow it up. I've seen it, like people within gaming, younger people, so gamers, younger generation, they're really good at it because it's essentially like a video game. It moves really fast, and you're on your computer and you're researching coins and flicking around. And it works really well for the young mind. But big rewards and big risks.
What do you think? Like, what do you think that as an average, like for the average punter though, like how are they thinking about this? Like, should the average person just jump in and have a play, or does it take a lot of knowledge to like really understand how these guys are doing this? I
think the average person can, but they really have to make sure they're aware of risk management. And kind of learn up, do a bit of research beforehand, understand what's going on. And a good way to start is paper trading. So you're not actually using money, but you look at the charts and everything and say like, okay, I buy now, and then pick when you sell, and then see if you're winning or losing.
Smart.
Then you start off with a small portfolio size, like small bids. So you just put in $5-10 at a time or something. So you got a tiny bit of skin in the game. Because there's a little bit of money on fees as well. But then you can't get absolutely wrecked because if you start going in and just, I'm the man, I know this. Like you lose thousands. You can lose thousands in a day.
That's crazy, eh? And like, I mean, we're probably going down a path that we didn't need to. But in meme coins, like, do they just like, the reason people lose money is they just disappear? Like they just, all the money's taken out of them and then no one goes back to them? Is that kind of what's happening, why people are losing?
Essentially there's liquidity added to the project. So at the start of the project, there's very low liquidity. There's a lot of tokens. People believe in the project. They buy in early, get a lot of tokens, add to the liquidity pool. And then as people exit and sell, that takes away the liquidity. So, as soon as that liquidity is gone, people selling off, like it can be like a death spiral, as soon as someone starts doing big sells, then it kind of does like a cascade effect. And then, they can be last for seconds, minutes. Decent ones last into hours, or if they're really good, they can last weeks to months.
That's crazy.
But it's a very fast game.
It is crazy, eh? It's,
it's why crazy story about it too.
Can you share it?
I won't go too deep into details, but last year had a bit of a crazy time. I launched a project with some people I thought I could trust really well. It turns out not so much, but anyway. So we launched the project. The coin went to like 100 million market cap in like 30 minutes. I was up halfway to 7 figures, and then it went to 0 in a day.
Because they started selling off fast or something?
One of the guys that did like a backdoor entry, and someone sold a lot of money at once on the chart.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. But so they can be cruel.
Yeah. It is a weird world. Like, I think it is one of those worlds that, like, there's lots of money to be made, but, like, it takes a certain type of individual to do it. And I think for most people, like, I mean, we know it's not for most people. And that's with everything in life. Like, not all of us can win. If we're all winning, then fuck, what are we winning from?
Exactly.
But it is an interesting world. And I think, like, the thing I find about them is, I find it real hard to talk to people like you, because all my brain's doing is like, fuck, if these guys can do it, I can fucking figure this out. And I don't want to do it. My wife will be like, get the fuck out of here, because like, we don't need this. But I do think it's an interesting world to play in, because it's like a real high risk, high reward. It's like, it reminds me of like the guys who are in the high frequency trading route in stock markets before. I don't know if you've ever read any of the books by like Michael Lewis, who talks about the guys who built like direct connections between the stock exchanges and stuff to get faster trades and things. It's like that sort of crazy world that you got to play these games that are happening in microseconds, otherwise you're done. But it is an interesting world to play into. As you see this market maturing, one of the things with really stable financial institutions that like last over a long period of time is that stability is important, because then you can get more people investing, because stability is important. Do you see that happening in this world eventually? Like that stability comes in and these sorts of like sort of like pump and dump sort of situations start to slow? Or do you think that that's just like an environment that, because it's decentralized and because there's a lot less regulation and it's hard to regulate, it's just going to continue for a longer time?
Yeah. No, I think that we're still in early stages, and that it will get to that point. It'll be much more well established and have more regulation and safety nets throughout. But I think at the moment, still a lot of kind of trial and error and a lot of experimentation going on. So like this last bull market was the introduction of the smart contracts, with NFTs and stuff like that. And then there's a whole, different like there's been a big focus on AI this cycle, so introducing AI tools and AI agents and that sort of thing. So I think it's still going to take another at least cycle or two to really iron things out, but then by that time it's not as lucrative of opportunity. So it's like you got to weigh it up. Do I want to get in early with a large potential upside, or get in when it's a bit safer, but there's less potential room to move, and then I've got less experience than the guy. That's why I started so early. I was like, if I can start now, work pretty much for 2 years straight, I'm going to have a leg up on anyone else that's trying to crush me. So doing a bit of that. And there's more tools out these days as well. So tools to identify, sketchy code or things that might lead to pump and dumps, and check the distribution of tokens, and a whole lots of different plugins. And then your average investor is getting a lot more intelligent. For example, what people were buying last bull market would it's not going to fly this time around. You have to have more utility, or has to make a lot more sense than just kind of random pictures. Yeah,
it makes sense. That makes sense. For the average business owner, or actually person, but business owner, let's go business owner. How does, like someone like me, or like your average business, I was probably not the average business, but businesses of my size and bigger, how should they be thinking about Web3 and integrating it into their business when they're not in gaming, they're not in finance or nothing like that, but like how do they implement Web3 in the right way? Should they even care about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess depends on the industry and their niche, but for your average business owner, I think having a small portion of their investment portfolio in kind of something like Bitcoin would be a great way to get their foot in the door. And then Web3, they can obviously distribute digital assets that are one of a kind. So whether there's some sort of way they can engage with their community with that, whether create like it's like a membership pass, to their community. They can do that through digital assets, or it's a good way to get in touch with the global audience as well and give global rewards. So obviously instant transactions and things like that. So, but not every industry, I guess, needs to kind of dabble.
No. Talk about smart contracts for a second. We've got probably 8 or 9 minutes left, right? This conversation. I've heard a lot about smart contracts, and I think there's a lot of scope there in that place. But like, what for people listening, What does that even mean, first of all?
Yeah, smart contract is a bunch of code that instructs how these assets operate, essentially. Give directions on, the supply. You can pretty much customize them across a bunch of different languages how you wish, but essentially you can create a digital contract which executes, and it's available, for everyone to view simultaneously, and it can't be edited unless there's functions in there that say it can be edited. So it can be set in stone, and that's a digital contract that can operate.
So it executes on this contract regardless of what I care about. Like it's just going to go because some certain parameters were met. Kind of thing. Is that kind of what it is, or?
Yeah, essentially it just gives it a bunch of instructions. Like a sequence of directions of how it operates, and some rules, a bunch of rules, and it can give operations to execute and things like that.
Okay, interesting. So like, no, it's interesting. I mean, I would dig into it. I think it would take me another hour to unpack stuff in this space.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not a developer either.
No,
of
course.
There's any developers out there who are like, he's explaining it wrong. No,
but I think it's enough for people to understand, like, they're smart. They're not contracts written on pieces of paper that can only, like...
they can be very intricate, exactly.
Okay, so I find it quite fascinating, actually. I didn't realize necessarily that a lot of the work you've done is actually in the social media space of it. It's in the community building part of it, which is quite fascinating, because I don't think for most people listening that there isn't a whole career path. Just like there's a career path in media, or a career path in sport, or a career path in finance or accounting or whatever. In Web3, it's not just this big scary thing of people trying to trade crypto to each other. There's actually a lot more involved. And if you were someone like listening to this, or a young person listening to us, like, and they were like, you know what, I'm real interested in this. Like, how do I get my foot in the door here? I know you've said what you did a few years ago. Do you think anything's changed about how to get your foot in the door, or what would your advice be for these kids trying to get in?
Yeah, I think similar to how I got introduced. If you want to get involved, it would be kind of tap into a project that or that you have some people that in there. Ask if you can help, in the community, moderate, learn, and then there's obviously different routes you can go down. There's developer route, there's the social media route, there's a whole bunch of different kind of directions that you could take within. You go in there, test it out in your spare time, and then see how it kind of all pans out for you, and kind of follow that track. Really, there's obviously trading as well. If you're good at video games, maybe you'll be good at meme coin trading.
That's funny,
But what I did, it's like digital marketing agencies, or marketing agencies for traditional business. I'm just doing that within the Web3 realm.
Yeah, exactly.
Is the easiest way to explain it.
No different, Okay, from your perspective, what's your goals? Like, what's the next thing for you? What do you hope to achieve with this over the next few years? Like, what's your big goals?
Keep building the business out. Help deliver some amazing projects. I'm still working on a bunch of great projects.
Cool.
So build the brand, build the company. Obviously, try and get some financial freedom for family and friends as well as obviously long-term goals. And travel as well. It's cool networking, and really just keep learning, man. Just make some cool products and help some people.
Bro, I love it.
Learn about.
Bro, it's awesome. Bro, it's awesome to hear, and like probably off camera at some point have a proper conversation around like maybe the stuff that's not as exciting for everyone else to hear about. But I think it's fascinating. Honestly, I didn't quite realize, just from looking from the outside, how the business operated, which is, you told me that right at the beginning of the show, that no one really knows what I do. But I think it's fascinating. I think it's quite cool how you built this, because you just applied classic business knowledge to a new industry. Nothing new, nothing different.
Use framework that I've learned in business school, and learn from business books and everything. Nothing different. I love it. And actually, when you start to explain it, I get it, because I'm like, this is what I did to build this marketing agency. You just did the same in a different space than me. And it's just a digital world. Like, it sometimes get a bit boring or lonely. So I've worked from home by myself for the last 3.5 years. Like, no one physically in front of me to bounce ideas off, just talking to internet people. So, you have that hurdle to jump over. It's a little bit of isolation.
And that's still the way it is for you now?
Yeah, I'm still at the moment working from home. Got a cool setup. I went and tapped into some co-working spaces and went in, but then I require such a massive setup. I got a whole bunch of crap. So it was just like, And with the work hours. So obviously US morning is about 1 a.m. So I don't really be going into a co-working space at like 1 a.m. I just look like crazy man.
So this is almost a late night for you, or
is
this
like
early morning?
Yeah, it depends how you look at it, but lunchtimes.
Yeah.
My flatmates and stuff hear me cooking food at like 2 a.m. and that's my lunchtime.
Yeah, right. It's epic. It's actually real epic to see, to hear. You see a lot of the stuff, but you don't see a lot of it close to home in New Zealand because, there are some cool players in it. I've seen it, but the world's not as big here as it is globally, obviously with everything. But it's super interesting to hear your take on it. I definitely have to catch up with you some other time just to see where you guys are playing in this field, because it's an interesting space. I think that all of us have to know, because the digital world's only going to take over more and more. Yeah. And we play in social media, that is also a digital world where people live on social media. They're real places people go to live on their phones. And you're just playing in a similar spot.
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of crossover there. Anyway, bro, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And I wish you all the best and hope you fucking smash it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the podcast.
Cheers, bro. Awesome, brother. Yeah, cheers.